Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. As we saw earlier from the story of Mettaka, sometimes stories can be helpful. So I will take the opportunity this evening to talk a little bit about Abhayagiri, the current state of Abhayagiri, and how things are going there. I just spoke with Ajahn Chunda earlier today. He's the Fa Wat. He's taking my place for the time that I'm away from Abhayagiri. So I've been away for maybe almost 5 months, been away for 5 months from Abhayagiri, taking a break because I've been Jawa Wat there for 5 pansa now. Not quite 5 years, maybe a little over 4 years, but 5 pansa. And so it's been quite challenging to try to step into the shoes of Longpa Pasano and have him step aside and retire. So especially during COVID era, it's a very difficult time to be a leader. So even though I made it through, I announced to Longpa Pasano that I needed a break so that I would come to Thailand for half a year and take a break. So now that I'm getting closer to my time of returning to the US, and I'm thinking about how are things going. And my only real retreat time was the past 2 months where I got to spend time at Dream Valley Khao Yai. Before that, I was, in December and January, I was with Longpa Pasano. There was some big ngans at Wat Pananachat, the opening of the new Uposatha Hall, the king visiting, and then just going a lot of places after that. So I didn't really have any retreat time until just 2 months ago. The last 2 months was really the first retreat time that I've had. So I have found it was very grateful for my time and found it very helpful. Before that, I had the opportunity to be in India for 1 month, which I kind of thought was going to be like retreat time, but actually it was like the tea lineage of practice that Luang Por Cha talked about, Toraman. It was Toraman for 1 month. I got very sick. I was sick almost the whole time. And so there was a lot of obstacles. And so I came to Dream Valley Khao Yai to start the long process of recovering from all of my illnesses that I got in India. So I went there and I had pain in my chest from when I got COVID in India and was coughing so hard that I pulled a ligament in my chest, and from some knee injury that I had gotten, like a injured ligament in my left knee, and cold sores that wouldn't go away, strange allergic reactions on my skin and face. So at the very least, I am physically doing much better after my time at Dream Valley. And people who see me say I look less stressed out. So that's good, I guess. So of course, being Jawa Wat of a big monastery and a very important monastery is self-doubt. Self-doubt comes up, like I'm not confident not feeling confident that I can do such a thing, do such a position. So I have to realize it's just an act of service, mostly to my teacher, Luang Por Pasano, to help him because doesn't have enough energy to do it anymore. And there's not really anybody else who can do it. Of course, it's a team effort. So it's not just me, but it's the whole monastery. But you do need somebody kind of leading it. So probably the main thing that's happening with Abhayagiri is there's actually two new branch monasteries that are starting now. And so most of you are probably familiar with our first branch monastery, which was started 12 years ago, which is Pacific Hermitage. The abbot is Ajahn Sudanto, who originally ordained in Thailand. And he's still there. He's still there. He's currently building a very big abbot's kuti. And then in this other new branch monastery we're calling Humboldt Vihara, it's 3 hours north of Abhayagiri. And this place is very interesting. It's a very good story because it came about the last time I went Tudong in America was 2019 with Ajahn Sek and Tantisaro. Tantisaro is the monk who was traveling with me in Thailand this time, and now he's at Anandagiri with Ajahn Achalo. So the three of us went on Tudong, and then after about 2 weeks of being on Tudong, we got to this area in Humboldt County. So Abhayagiri is in Mendocino County, and then the county north of that is called Humboldt County. And there's a few towns up there. There's this town of Arcata, which has the Humboldt State University, where Debbie went to college, where she went to university. And she used to live up there. And then north of that is a town called McKinleyville. And then on the north end of McKinleyville, there's this particular property. So the way it came about was now I have to back up to my first Tudong in America, which was in 2013. So that's 10 years ago. And that was with Venerable Titapo, who has since disrobed. And that was when the two of us walked from Abhayagiri up to Pacific Hermitage. And when we were in this area of Humboldt County, so this is 10 years ago, this is a previous Tudong, we were walking along the highway and somebody picked us up, and her name was Therese. She gave us a ride and wanted to offer a meal. So she gave us we were north of this town called McKinleyville, and she gave us a ride to a town called Trinidad. It's a very beautiful hidden coastal town on the northern California coast. And if you were just driving on the highway, you wouldn't really know it's there. So she took us there, offered a meal. It turned out she had a relationship with Abhayagiri. She had gone there in the early days. And so this person who picked us up, turned out they knew about Abhayagiri. They knew about the monks, but they hadn't been there in a long time. So she offered a meal. We spent some time together, and then we didn't see her again. Then never heard anything from her. And then on this Tudong in 2019, so 4 years ago, then I had a cell phone with me on the Tudong so I could get emails and make calls. And we were so Ajahn Sek, myself, Tantisaro, had just walked through Humboldt State University, and we were resting near some railroad tracks in Arcata. And a email came through from this same lady who picked us up 6 years before, Therese. And the email was, just thinking about the monks right now. Wanted to reach out to you. So at that moment, we were 4 miles from her house. Like we could walk to her house. Hadn't heard from her in 6 years. Hadn't heard anything. And because she lives there. So, wow, this is very interesting. So I responded. We ended up getting in contact. And so it turned out when she sent that email, she was doing a meditation retreat, and the monks just came into her mind, and she felt like intuitively she wanted to reach out to the monks. So we ended up connecting. Her retreat ended. It was like 2 days later, we ended up staying. She has like a kuti behind her house, and Ajahn Sheikh stayed in the kuti, and then she has a separate other house where Tantisro and I stayed. So we stayed at her place, and the whole reason she wanted to reach out to us was she has this elderly friend who lives in the area named Anita, and this lady has been wanting to donate her land to somebody who's going to protect the redwood forest after she passes away. And so then Therese, the lady who found us, she's like friends with this elderly woman. So Anita had asked Therese to maybe try to find somebody to give the land to. Originally, she wanted to give it to Humboldt State University, but Humboldt State University kept not wanting it, not returning her communication. So she thought, we need to find somebody else to give it to. So this lady, Anita, she knew nothing about forest monks, almost nothing about Buddhism. She knew a little bit about Tibetan Buddhism, which is popular in America. So then Anita came to Teresa's house. We met. We talked. She asked a lot of questions about the Thai forest tradition. We talked for 2 hours. Next day, we went to her land. Ajahn Sheikh, myself, Tantisaro, and Ajahn Sheikh kept saying, Nyaniko, retire. Nyaniko, retire here. He's like, good. It's very good. He really liked it. It's 15 acres of beautiful, beautiful redwoods and cedar trees with a 5-bedroom house on it and a barn and a 1-bedroom retreat house with a bedroom, living room, and kitchen. And 2 large ponds and a stream running through it. A very, very beautiful piece of land, very secluded. And like, this is almost too good to be true. What's going on here? So then it was, we continued our Tudong. We were still on Tudong. This all happened on Tudong. And then after the Tudong, we went back to Abhayagiri, and I told Lumpua about it. And I had only been, at that time, I was co-abbot. There was 2 abbots, myself and Ajahn Krudadamo, and we were still quite new, and it would have been too difficult to take on a new branch monastery at that time. Plus, like, we didn't really know, like, maybe there's hidden strings attached or something. So at the time, we set it aside and we thought we'll revisit it later. Then Anita and Therese came to Abhayagiri so the elderly lady who wanted to offer the place, she wanted to get to know us better. So she came to Abhayagiri and actually took a full tour of the monastery, and we talked more, and she learned more about Lumpur Cha, the Thai forest tradition. And she was very happy about the prospect of offering her place, but we actually didn't accept it at that time. Then the pandemic happened and we forgot about it. And then the pandemic ended. And what happened was a lady who has a strong connection with Thailand, her name's Kelly. She actually speaks Thai, but she lives up in that same area of Arcata in Humboldt County. And this is completely unrelated. Again, it's this strange things coming together. Dhamma Jatsan. And Kelly, this is in April 2022. So 1 year ago, she wanted to talk to me about something. And she said, well, this is kind of might be strange, but when my father is older and when he passes away, I might get I'm set to get a large inheritance. And I would like to build a branch monastery of Abhayagiri in Humboldt County. And I said, that's interesting. And then I remembered the other place. And I thought, before you build a new place, let me check on something. Because having a place that's already built is easier than building a new place. So I hadn't contacted Anita or Therese in 3 years at that point, and emailed both of them. They responded right away. Yes, the place is even more ready for you now. So Kelly was visiting Abhayagiri. She was staying as a guest. So I said, well, you might find this hard to believe, but there's a place that they want to offer in Humboldt County near where you live. And seems like it's good, ready to go. So then Ajahn Chunda and I made a quick trip up to the place to revisit it. And we were the first visitors that Anita had since the beginning of the pandemic. She hadn't had a single person except a caretaker come onto her land. There's like a cleaner and a caretaker. They're the only people who would come on, no visitors. So we went, and she had thought about it more, about how she wanted to offer it. And so before we went, I was telling Ajahn Chunda about it. He's kind of like my helper, kind of Rong Jiao Wat at Abhayagiri. And he was kind of like, yeah, it kind of sounds too good to be true. So we went, and then we were looking at it, and Ajahn Chunda was kind of like, wow, this is amazing. And he said, this is between 10 and 100 times better than I thought it would be when you were telling me about it. And so then it just so happened that was when Ajahn Chunda and I visited there. It was June 21st, 2022. So June 21st last year, which was the summer solstice, which was the exact day that Ajahn Sek and myself at Tatisara were there 3 years before. So it was exactly 3 years to the day. Didn't plan it that way. I'd totally forgotten. And it was Therese who came, and she's really into this kind of like astrology and stuff. So she said, do you know that it was also summer solstice when you were here 3 years ago? That's really auspicious. This is an American woman saying this. Yeah. So anyway, that's Humboldt Vihara. That's one update about Abhayagiri. And then, of course, Three Jewels is, I told that story earlier. Now, so both of those places now, things are sort of happening, and they're talking about building kutis. I mean, the Humboldt Vihara, it really is too good to be true. It just keeps getting better and better. Like, we were asking Anita about the possibility of building kutis. It turns out she's like personal friends with the head of building in Humboldt County, and she was able to just call him. And he said, yeah, they can build 3 kutis. So we're like, wow, perfect. Okay, that's all we would want. And have maybe 4 or 5 monks living there. So since then, we also I led a day-long retreat there, and that was the first time we invited the local people just to see what would happen. Would anybody come? And 11 people showed up, and about half of them were from the university. And it turned out they had a meditation club, and they want to invite monks to it to give teachings if there are monks in the area. And then I spent the night, and we went Pindabat. There's 2 possible Pindabat villages. And I was going Pindabat, and there was a guy riding a bike, and he stopped and he said, I heard about a possible monastery starting down the road there at that address. Is that happening? I said, yeah, I think so. He's like, oh, okay, great. And he rode away. Somehow he had heard about it. So people are talking, there's a buzz going around about it. So in Abhayagiri, we're doing kuti building right now, and I'm really, really happy that I'm not involved with this. I'm really happy that Ajahn Chunda is taking this on. Very grateful. And what we're doing is originally when Abhayagiri started, there was 5 kutis built, and they were all illegal because the monks didn't know about these things called building codes. I just thought, yeah, we'll just like Thailand, just start building and easy. And so a local man who doesn't like doing things legally came and built 5 kutis, and they were nice kutis, but built each one, and maybe one kuti took 1 week to build, and he just built them. Then when the county found out about it, they said, those are illegal, but we will allow you to have them as long as you promise to replace them eventually with proper legal structures. So they legalized them for us. So we planned to replace them after 5 years. So now 25 years later, they're falling apart completely, and they have to be replaced. So one of them we replaced already. We replaced our log cabin, which is where Ajahn Amaro originally lived. And that's now, there's a proper nice kuti there. That's our newest kuti. It's called the Parami kuti. And then there's 4 others of the originals that needed to be replaced. So Ajahn Chunda is looking after that. We now have enough money to be doing that. So those are being done all at the same time. So they've destroyed them all, and the new kutis are being replaced. So that's happening. Also, before I came to Thailand, my last project was the new property that we got offered across the street from Abhayagiri, Cittaviveka, which is going to be our elders' residence. And we did a remodel of that place, and it turned out fantastic. Turned out really, really good. So very suitable for old and dying monks, so that's like a long-term investment in the future of Abhayagiri, that we can have the older monks have a place where they can stay, like almost like a samnak song. And it turns out the first resident is just a visiting elder, but Ajahn Pasadako, who some of you might know, he's at Abhayagiri now. He's, of course, ordained in Thailand and spent a lot of time in Thailand. The last time he was at Abhayagiri was when he was a layman before he came to Thailand to ordain. He visited Abhayagiri, and I think it was in the first year before there was any kutis. He visited. He was a man from Berkeley, a Tai Chi master from Berkeley. And he visited Abhayagiri, then he went to Thailand and ordained right after that. So now he's back visiting Abhayagiri. And otherwise, the community is doing very well. There's 14 bhikkhus. There's a Pakau who just became Samanen. And then there's 2 men who just ordained as Pakau 1 week ago. So the community is slowly growing and going very well. but it is a lot. It is a lot to manage. So for somebody who's the Jawa Wat, it's bigger than when Luang Por Pasano first started. When I went to Abhayagiri, there was 7 people living there, maybe six or 7 people. And Luang Por Pasano, Luang Por Amaro, Ajahn was there. He was 4 pansa. He was the Praton Rup. He was the guest monk. He was the one who received my email when I first wrote to Abhayagiri. And I said, I want to be a monk. What do I do? And he replied to my email and allowed me to visit. So Ajahn was the first monk I ever met in person. Community was much smaller. Now it's much bigger. Now every day at Abhayagiri, there's between 25 and 30 people living there. So it's much, much bigger. And there's a number of ajahns. There's 6 ajahns. It's a very mature community. So where do we go from here? The future is unknown. We have to just be with the unknowing. Now that COVID era is seemingly over, and it's not, people are still getting this COVID thing, but it doesn't seem to be much of a problem. We aren't as afraid of it. We know more about it. And so where do we go from here? It's like a shifting point in history. And I think where we go from here is we practice as much as we can. We cultivate as many wholesome qualities as we can, because we don't know if this is going to happen again, when this is going to happen again. And the world is a very big place. It's very uncertain. The world is very mainan, so we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We just know that we still have breath, we still have life right now, and these things are going. We're healthy enough to practice. That's what's important. Yeah. So hopefully I can even get back to Abhayagiri, but if there's some reason I can't return, I guess I have to stay in Thailand in July. I'm set to return in July. And we learned in the past few years that anything can happen at any time, and the world can change, and governments can decide to cancel flights, and countries can close their borders or open their borders. And so everything is very minor. We don't know what's going to happen. And that's okay. Actually, it's always been that way. Actually, we never knew what was going to happen. So we might have plans, but they don't play out the way we think they should, the way we think they will. And then our Kruba Ajahns, like Luang Por Liam, and then the Western Ajahns, Luang Por Sumedho. Luang Por Sumedho is going to be 89 this year. 90. Is he going to be 90? Was he born in 1933? I thought it was 1934. 90 years old. Luang Por Pasano's mother is going to be 100 on July 23rd. And she was just at Abhayagiri for Songkran. And all of the lay people washed her hands. Yeah. 99. At 99, she's still running around. Yeah. And Luang Por Pasano is going to be 74 on July 26th. So our elders are not getting any younger. So it's an interesting time. And I was reflecting that now I'm older than Ajahn Amaro was when he started Abhayagiri. That's interesting to think about. And I'm quite a bit older than Longpo Pasano was when he became the abbot of Wat Pananachat. he was 35, 34. He was 34 because he was 8 pansa and he ordained at the age of 24. Yeah. So yeah, time keeps passing. And then now people are coming to ordain who weren't born yet when I went to Abhayagiri. People are coming to ordain who weren't born when I was Pakao. That's fun to think about. So now if a 21-year-old comes to the monastery, they were born when I was Pakao. If a 20-year-old comes to the monastery, they were born when I was Samanin. So this is fun to think about. And we don't think that we will grow older. We don't think that we will die. When we're younger, or even we can think right now, whatever age we are right now, it kind of seems like it's a long time. Like when I first ordained, I thought, wow, 10 pansa, that's a really, really far away. And then when I was 10 pansa, I thought 20 pansa, really, really far away. And yes, all of these things happen, all of these experiences happen, but then it's like baptio. So death, that's how we do Marananusati. Death will be like that as well. Death is not here right now, but then at the time when we die, then where is the rest of our life? So it's gone. Where did it go? And then that's it. So it's quite interesting. Life is like an illusion. It just passes like a magical play, like a rainbow. The Buddha compared it to a bubble, like a bubble or a lump of foam. Or Luang Por Chah like to use the analogy of ice. Like our body is like an ice cube that's melting and then it's just gone. So it's good to think about. But this is not to make us depressed. This is not to make us sad. If we think about death and it makes us sad, we need to think about metta more. Stop thinking about death for the time being. The reason we do death contemplation, the reason we do Marananusati is so that we can come back to Buddho, that we can come back to our practice as much as possible. We can come back to Sati Sampajanya. We don't need to think of death all the time, but we need to think of death enough, just enough to be able to not forget about our practice. So that's the point. There's a reason we do it. Ultimately, the reason is for the peaceful mind and for the wholesome qualities to arise, that we don't waste our time doing useless things. And there's a Tibetan teaching that I like where it's Lama Tsongkhapa that he talks about. If we think of how this life is like a bubble, like a lump of foam, like lightning, passes like lightning, in like a flash, it's gone. When we think like this, we will let go of this life's trivia and we will turn our minds toward the Dhamma. So that's probably good enough for reflections this evening, and a Bayagiri update followed by Marananusati reflections. And I will leave it there.